Last year, I moved into this new house in the middle of nowhere. No streetlights, and barely anyone knows about the small town that I'm in. At first, the house was fine, but my dog started yelping and howling at nothing, which I thought was nothing at the time. Things even got weird enough that I decided to install a camera downstairs. I watched the footage the next morning, and what I saw really disturbed me. I saw a man sitting on the couch the second that I turned off the light. He stood up and walked behind me as I went up the stairs to my room, in the most aloof but creepy way. The man didn't move when he got to the bottom of my stairs. He stood there, almost like he didn't exist and was just a shadow. The next morning as I headed down the stairs, he disappeared. This happened every night for several weeks, so I got a roommate. While my roommate was with me, he was gone, but every night as I turned off the lights, I would see light orbs everywhere. I saw a little girl in my room every day, and she would always follow me around but never leave my room. The nights where my roommate was out, I saw the man standing in the hallway outside my door. I got diagnosed with schizophrenia, but I don't believe it. And when my roommate saw the footage, she believed me too. Whether what I saw was fake or real, it killed my animals and wrote me a note saying I was next. I stopped seeing the man and the girl, but there are some nights where I wake up in a cold sweat, crying and screaming for help, while it feels like my body's being torn to shreds. So my dad's house is this really old house, and my room is right under the main part of the attic. One night, I was laying in bed scrolling through YouTube when I heard a sound. It sounded like someone was dragging themselves across the attic floor. I ignored it, thinking it was just my imagination. I thought that was it, but it happened again a few nights later. And as I'm writing this, I can hear scratching and my dog is going nuts. After it happened the second night, I came to the conclusion that we had a squatter. I told my dad, and him and my grandfather went up to check. When they went up, there was no signs that anyone had been up there, so they brought me up and we tore the attic apart. We never found anyone or anything. There were never, and there still is nothing that points to anything natural being up in the attic. I still hear the noises to this day. Also, this next part happened a few months before the last one. I was laying in bed at my mom's late at night because I couldn't sleep, so I was just laying there thinking. I heard a sound from the bathroom. Thinking it was my mom, I just ignored it, and then the toilet flushed, but I didn't hear anyone leave the bathroom. I wondered if she was sick, so I got up and started walking to the bathroom, and when I passed her room, I looked in and she was sound asleep. Then I thought, maybe her boyfriend is over. When I got to the washroom, the door was wide open and no one was in there. I started to speed walk back to my room when the toilet flushed again. I panicked while jogging to my room as to not wake up my mom. When I got back to my room, I laid down and I started to cry. This was one of my first of many in the past 3 years that have had something to do with things that weren't human. But I eventually braved up and went back to the bathroom first thing in the morning, finding a small amount of water on the floor. I asked my mom if she had gone to the bathroom at all during the night. She said she hadn't. This story starts about 10 years ago. We had been in a new house for a couple of years, and my sister and I were starting to adjust, until my sister had her first experience. She was asleep in her room and felt like someone was watching her. She looked over and there was a shadow figure in her doorway with red eyes. She thought she was dreaming and rolled over to go back to sleep. About an hour later, she felt like someone was breathing down her neck. She rolled over and said all she saw was a bloody face. She ran to my parents' room and slept there for years until we finally switched rooms. When I began staying in the room, I didn't feel anything at all for a while. Then one night I was up late reading when I started getting a really bad feeling. When I looked over to the corner next to the closet, it looked like dark smoke swirling around. I ran out and slept in the living room for months. Shortly after, my brother and friend were home alone when the power went out, so they found a recorder and decided to mess around with whatever was down there. They didn't get anything until my brother started provoking it, and he caught one voice saying,
"Fuck you, Nick."
He never went back there again, and he moved out of the house soon after. A few years ago, my mom had her first experience. She had woken up in the middle of the night and felt like she was being held down. She tried screaming, but no one seemed to hear her, including my dad, who slept right next to her. She didn't know how long it would last, but afterwards, she would be able to get up and she would walk around trying to shake the feeling that she had. She wouldn't sleep by herself in her room and still doesn't like to go to bed alone. 2 years ago, I had my son, and I was going to stay with my parents while I was recovering from the C-section, and I would be staying in the same room. My grandmother called my mom. We have never told her the stories of what happened, and she asked my mom to write Bible verses on the concrete floor before my mom painted it. She had a dream about something bad being in there, and she wanted her to take precautions before we moved in. Recently, after my son and I moved in with my fiance about 6 months ago, something has started following my son and has been waking him up at night and scaring him. My fiance and I both have seen shadow figures in the apartment where we live, and they're brand new and shouldn't be haunted. And my son's dad's girlfriend has seen the same shadow figure in their house. We've tried praying and using God's name, but it still comes back. Sage seems to make it weaker though, but my sister has confirmed it's the same shadow she saw when she was little.